Kang Tai-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the broken engine parts scattered across the metal floor. His transport ship had died 3 hours ago, right in the middle of nowhere. Well, not exactly nowhere. They were docked at Crimson Arena, the most famous fighting station in this part of the galaxy. The other passengers had already left to explore the station while they waited for repairs. Tai-ho stayed behind, trying to fix what could be fixed. He was good with machines. Back home on Earth's outer colonies, people always called him when their equipment broke down. But this engine was beyond his skills. They would need to wait for proper parts and a real mechanic. His stomach growled. He had been working for hours without food. Maybe it was time to see what this famous arena was all about. Tai-ho had heard stories, of course. Every being in the galaxy knew about Crimson Arena. Warriors came from across the stars to fight here. The winners became legends. The losers often did not go home. He walked through the station's corridors, following signs that led to the main viewing area. The walls were covered with pictures of past champions. Most of them looked like they could tear a human in half without trying. Tai-ho was not a small man, but compared to these creatures, he felt like a child. The arena itself was massive. Thousands of seats surrounded a circular fighting area below. The floor was made of some kind of red stone that looked like it had seen plenty of blood. Lights hung from the ceiling, casting everything in a harsh glow that made the whole place feel dangerous. Most of the seats were empty now, but a few hundred aliens sat scattered around, watching two fighters battle below. One was a blue-skinned creature with 4 arms. The other looked like a giant insect with razor-sharp claws. They moved fast, faster than Tai-ho's eyes could follow properly. He found an empty seat and sat down to watch. The fighting was brutal. No rules that he could see, except maybe not killing your opponent. Both fighters bled from multiple wounds, but they kept going like the pain meant nothing to them. The insect creature made a mistake. It left its side open for just a moment. The blue fighter's 4 arms moved together, striking at once. The insect went down hard and did not get up. The crowd cheered, but not very loudly. This had been a minor fight, Tai-ho realized. Just a warm-up for the real entertainment. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species," a voice boomed across the arena. "The warm-up fights are over. It is time for our main event." The lights dimmed, then focused on one side of the arena. A gate opened, and out walked the largest creature Tai-ho had ever seen. It stood at least 7 feet tall, covered in green scales that looked harder than armor. Its arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in hands that could probably crush a human skull. Its face was long and reptilian, with yellow eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. "Vorthak the Destroyer," the announcer's voice continued. "Champion of the Saurian Empire, winner of 47 consecutive battles. He has never been defeated." The crowd went wild. Aliens jumped to their feet, roaring and cheering. Some threw objects into the arena as signs of respect. Vorthak raised his arms and flexed, showing off muscles that rippled under his scales. He picked up a massive weapon from a rack near the gate, something that looked like a cross between a sword and a club, too heavy for any normal being to lift. The other gate opened and another fighter came out. This one was smaller but still impressive, a cat-like alien with silver fur and long claws. It moved like liquid, flowing rather than walking. Even from the stands, Tai-ho could see the intelligence in its green eyes. The fight that followed was amazing and terrible at the same time. Both fighters were skilled, both were strong, but Vorthak was simply better. He moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large, Every attack was precise, every defense perfect. The cat creature fought bravely, but it was clear who would win. It ended quickly. Vorthak's weapon connected with his opponent's chest, sending the cat creature flying across the arena. It hit the wall and slid down, unconscious but still breathing. Vorthak stood in the center of the arena, arms raised in victory while the crowd cheered his name. Then something unexpected happened. Vorthak's yellow eyes found Teho in the crowd. Maybe it was because Teho was the only human in sight. Maybe it was because he was not cheering like everyone else. Or maybe it was just bad luck. But once those burning eyes locked onto him, Teho knew he was in trouble. Vorthak pointed directly at him. "You!" His voice boomed across the arena without any amplification. "Human! Yes, you in the blue shirt! Stand up!" Every head in the arena turned to look at Teho. Thousands of alien eyes stared at him with curiosity, amusement, and in some cases, hunger. His mouth went dry. His hands started to shake, but he stood up anyway because sitting would have been worse. "I smell fear on you, little human," Vorthak called out. "Fear and weakness. Your kind has just been accepted into the Galactic Council, yes? The other species think you deserve respect, but I know better." The crowd murmured with interest. This was unexpected entertainment. "I challenge you to single combat!" Vorthak's voice echoed off the arena walls. "Here, in 3 days' time, let us show the galaxy what humans are really made of." The crowd erupted. Some cheered at the idea of seeing a human fight. Others laughed at what they saw as a joke. A few made gestures that Teho suspected were very rude in their home cultures. Teho's brain refused to work properly. This could not be happening. He was an engineer, not a fighter. He fixed machines, not people. The largest thing he had ever fought was a broken cooling unit, and even that had given him trouble. But every alien in the arena was watching him, waiting for his answer. If he said no, it would look like all humans were cowards. If he said yes, he would probably die in 3 days. Either way, his choice would reflect on his entire species. He thought about his friends back home, about the colonies where humans worked hard to build new lives among the stars, about all the humans serving on ships and stations across the galaxy, trying to prove they belonged in this larger community. "I accept," he said, his voice barely carrying across the arena. Vorthak's laughter was like the sound of breaking glass. "Excellent. 3 days, human. Use them well. They may be your last." The crowd cheered again as Vorthak left the arena. Slowly, the aliens began to file out, talking excitedly about the upcoming fight. Most of them seemed to think it would be very short and very entertaining. Teho remained in his seat long after everyone else had gone. The arena was quiet now, just him and the red stone floor where he would probably die in 3 days. His hands had stopped shaking, but only because he felt too empty to feel afraid anymore. What had he done? Teho sat in his small room on the station, staring at the communication device in his hands. He had recorded the message 3 times already, but he could not find the right words. How do you tell your friends that you are probably going to die in 2 days? The room was tiny, barely big enough for a bed and a small table. The station had given it to him for free after the challenge. Even they seemed to think he deserved some comfort before his death. The walls were gray metal, and the only window showed the stars outside. Beautiful and far away, just like home. He pressed the record button again. "Hi, everyone, this is Tai-Ho. I wanted you to know that my ship broke down at Crimson Arena. You know, The fighting place we used to watch on the news feeds when we were kids. Well, something happened here. Something stupid. He paused, trying to find courage. I got challenged. To a fight by the champion. A big alien called Vorthak. I said yes because, well, because I am an idiot, I think. He stopped recording and put his head in his hands. This was impossible. How could he explain? How could he make them understand? That he had not had a choice? The door chimed. Tae-ho looked up, confused. He was not expecting anyone. Maybe it was station security, telling him he could not back out of the fight. He opened the door. A tall alien stood in the hallway. It had gray skin and too many eyes, wearing the uniform of arena staff. "You are the human fighter?" it asked in broken standard language. "I guess so," Tae-ho said. "Come. Training time. 3 levels down. Section 12. Other fighters want to see you." Tae-ho followed the alien through corridors he had not seen before. These were deeper in the station, where the walls were thicker and the air felt heavier. They passed doors, marked with symbols he could not read, but the sounds coming from behind them made his skin crawl. Roaring, metal hitting metal, and sometimes screams. Section 12 was a huge room filled with training equipment. Most of it looked like torture devices to Tae-ho. Weights that would crush a human, weapons that seemed designed for beings with 4 arms or tentacles instead of hands, and practice targets that moved too fast to follow. About 20 aliens were scattered around the room, all of them big, all of them scary. They stopped what they were doing when Tae-ho walked in. The room became very quiet. "So this is the human," one of them said. It looked like a bear made of rock, with crystals growing out of its shoulders. "Very small." "Very weak," agreed another. This one had blue skin and muscles that bulged in places humans did not have muscles. "How long do you think he will last?" asked a third. It was covered in what looked like armor, but Tae-ho realized it was probably just its skin. 10 seconds, said the rock bear. 5, said the blue one. "I give him 3, said the armored one. They all laughed. The sound echoed off the walls like breaking glass. Tae-ho walked over to a simple weight machine and tried to lift something. The bar did not move. He tried again, putting his whole body into it. Nothing. One of the aliens walked over and lifted. The same weight with one finger, then set it down gently. "Maybe try something smaller," it suggested, not unkindly. For the next 2 hours, Tae-ho tried different equipment. Everything was too heavy, too fast, or designed for body parts he did not have. The aliens watched him struggle and occasionally offered advice that was completely useless. "Just grow bigger muscles," one said helpfully, "or maybe extra arms." By the time he returned to his room, Tae-ho felt worse than when he had started. He was not just going to lose the fight. He was going to embarrass himself and all humans while doing it. He picked up the communication device again and finished. His message. "Look, I probably will not survive this. The alien I have to fight is huge and strong and has never lost. I am none of those things. I just wanted to say goodbye and tell you all that I love you. Do not try to come here. There is nothing you can do, and I do not want you to see this. Take care of each other. Tae-ho out." He sent the message before he could change his mind again. Halfway across the galaxy, Park Do-won was loading cargo onto his ship when his communication device beeped. He was tired from a long day of work, but he always checked messages from friends. Right away. The cargo could wait. When he heard Tae-ho's voice, Do-won stopped moving. When the message ended, he dropped the crate he was holding and ran for his ship's control room. Computer, plot a course for Crimson Arena Station. Fastest possible route. That destination is 17 days away at maximum safe speed, the computer replied in its calm voice. I did not ask for safe speed. I asked for fastest possible. Fastest possible speed would require dangerous engine modifications and... Do it. Duwan started making other calls while the computer calculated the course. First to his employer, quitting his job, then to other friends. Lee Soo-jin was in her laboratory when her device chimed. She was working on a new type of scanner for the military, something that could detect weaknesses in alien armor. The work was important and secret, but when she heard Taeho's message, she started packing immediately. Her supervisor found her 20 minutes later, shoving equipment into travel cases. Soo-jin, what are you doing? The deadline for the project is... My friend is going to die, she said without looking up. The project can wait. You cannot just leave. This is military research. You signed contracts. Soo-jin turned to face him. Try to stop me. Her supervisor looked at her face and stepped back. Soo-jin had always been quiet and polite. He had never seen her angry before. It was frightening. Kim Woo-bin was running laps around the colony's sports track when his message arrived. He was training for the regional athletics competition, something he had been working toward for months. But when he heard Taeho's voice, he stopped running and sat down on the track. Other runners passed him, asking if he was okay. Woo-bin did not answer. He was thinking about when they were all kids, and Taeho had stood up to bullies who were picking on Woo-bin for being small. Taeho had been small too, but he had stood up anyway. Now it was Woo-bin's turn. He got up and ran home, to pack. Back on Crimson Arena, Taeho spent his second day trying to learn how to fight. It did not go well. He could barely lift the smallest weapons in the arena's armory. When he tried to practice combat moves, he fell down more than he stayed standing. Other fighters came to watch sometimes, and they always left laughing. Vorthak visited him that evening. The big reptilian alien had to duck to fit through the doorway of the training room. How goes your preparation, little human? Vorthak asked, showing teeth that looked like knives. Great, Taeho said, trying to sound confident. Really great. Vorthak picked up a practice sword that Taeho had been struggling with all day. He spun it in one hand like it weighed nothing, then drove it through a metal practice dummy. The blade went all the way through and stuck in the wall behind. Tomorrow, that will be you, Vorthak said cheerfully. I will make it quick, though, as a mercy. After the alien left, Taeho sat alone in the training room. His whole body hurt from trying to use muscles he did not have. His hands were covered in blisters from gripping weapons that were too big for him. In less than 24 hours, he would walk into that arena and die in front of thousands of aliens who would cheer when it happened. He had never felt so alone in his life. But far away, 3 ships were pushing their engines past safe limits, racing toward Crimson Arena. In each ship, a friend refused to let Taeho face his fate alone. They would not arrive in time to stop the fight. But maybe, just maybe, they could do something else. Something that would remind the galaxy what humans were really made of. Taeho woke up on his final day feeling sick to his stomach. In 12 hours, he would enter the arena. In 12 hours and 5 minutes, he would probably be dead. He had not slept well, and his dreams had been full of yellow eyes and sharp teeth. He was getting dressed when his door chimed. Probably arena staff, coming to make sure he had not tried to escape during the night. He opened the door, ready to tell them he was not going anywhere. Park Do-won stood in the hallway, grinning like an idiot. "Surprise," Do-won said, then caught Tae-ho as his friend nearly fell over from shock. "What? How? You cannot be here," Tae-ho stammered. "I told you not to come." "Since when do I listen to anything you say?" Do-won asked, pushing his way into the room. "Besides, I made really good time. Only burned out 3 engine components getting here." Tae-ho stared at his childhood friend. Do-won looked tired and stressed, with oil stains on his clothes and burn marks on his hands from working on his ship's engines. But he was smiling, and for the first time in 3 days, Tae-ho felt like maybe he was not completely alone. "You are an idiot," Tae-ho said. "Yes, but I am your idiot," Do-won replied. "Now tell me everything about this fight. And I mean everything." They spent the next hour going over the arena rules. Do-won had brought a portable computer with him, and he pulled up every piece of information he could find about Crimson Arena and Gladiator combat. Most of it was not helpful. Discussions of combat techniques that required years of training or weapon specifications for equipment Tae-ho could not even lift. But then Do-won found something interesting. "Look at this," he said, pointing at a section of the rules. "Combat Regulations, Section 12, Subsection 4. Fighters may participate in a bonding ceremony before combat, during which allies may share strength, wisdom, and spiritual support with the primary combatant." "What does that mean?" Tae-ho asked. "I have no idea, but it sounds useful. Let me research more." Before Do-won could explain further, the door chimed again. This time it was Lee Soo-jin, carrying 2 large cases of equipment and looking determined. "I came as fast as I could," she said, setting down her cases and hugging both men at once. "I brought some things that might help." "What kind of things?" Tae-ho asked. Soo-jin opened one of her cases, revealing devices he did not recognize. "Scanning equipment, mostly. Military grade. I thought maybe if we could find weaknesses in this Vorthax fighting style, or analyze the arena environment for advantages." "Can you do that in?" Tae-ho checked the time. 10 hours? I can try." An hour later, Kim Woo-bin arrived. He had pushed his small personal transport even harder than the others, and it had barely held together for the final approach to the station. But he was there, and he brought something the others did not have: actual knowledge about physical combat. "I'm not a fighter," he said after Tae-ho explained the situation, "but I know about athletic training, about using your body efficiently. Maybe that can help." The 4 friends sat in Tae-ho's small room, looking at each other. They had been apart for years, living different lives across human space. But now they were together again, facing something none of them understood. "Okay," Do-won said finally. "Let us figure this out. Soo-jin, start scanning everything you can about the arena and this Vorthak alien. Find out what we are dealing with. Woo-bin, work with Tae-ho on physical preparation. Whatever we can do in the time we have. I will keep researching these rules, especially this bonding ceremony thing." "What if we cannot find anything useful?" Tae-ho asked. "Then we try anyway," Soo-jin said firmly. "That is what friends do." They split up to work. Soo-jin set up her scanning equipment and began analyzing everything she could detect about the arena. The walls, the floor, the lighting systems, even the air circulation. Her military scanners were designed to find weaknesses in alien technology, and she hoped they might reveal something useful about the fighting environment. Woo-bin worked with Tae-ho on basic physical preparation, not combat training. There was no time for that. but exercises to improve balance, reaction time, and endurance. You will never be as strong as this alien, Wu Bin explained, but maybe you can be faster, or smarter, or just last longer than he expects. Duwan dove deep into arena regulations and galactic combat traditions. The bonding ceremony was mentioned in several places, but always briefly. It seemed to be an old custom that most modern fighters ignored. Most fighters worked alone, after all. Why would they need friends to share strength? As the hours passed, pieces of a plan began to form. Sujin discovered that the arena's environmental systems were surprisingly complex. Lighting, temperature, air pressure, even gravity could be adjusted for different types of fighters. "I think I can create some small disruptions," she said. "Nothing obvious, but maybe enough to confuse a fighter who is used to standard conditions." Wu Bin worked on teaching Tai Ho how to move efficiently. "Stop trying to be strong," he said. "Start thinking about being smart. Use the environment. Use your size. Be where he does not expect you to be." Duwan found references to historical bonding ceremonies in the arena's archives. "It is almost never used anymore," he said, "but the tradition allows for up to 3 allies to participate. They cannot fight directly, but they can provide support, guidance, and even equipment during the ceremony." "What does that mean for the actual fight?" Taeho asked. "I am not sure yet, but I think it means we can be with you, at least at the beginning." 2 hours before the fight, they requested permission to perform a bonding ceremony. The arena officials seemed surprised but agreed. "It has been many years since anyone used the old ways," one of them said. "But the traditions must be honored." They were taken to a small chamber beneath the arena. It was clearly very old, with stone walls covered in symbols from dozens of different cultures. A circular platform sat in the center, just large enough for 4 people to stand together. "This is where warriors prepared their spirits before battle," the official explained. "You have 1 hour." When they were alone, the 4 friends stood on the platform together. None of them knew exactly what they were supposed to do, but somehow it felt right just to be there, together. "I am sorry I got you all into this," Tai Ho said. "You did not get us into anything," Dowan replied. "We chose to be here." "Besides," Sujin added, "we have been friends since we were children. Do you really think we would let you face this alone? Even if you told us not to come," Wu Bin said with a grin. They spent the hour talking, not about the fight, not about strategy, but about their childhood together, about growing up in the colonies, dreaming of seeing the galaxy, about all the times they had helped each other through difficult situations, about what their friendship meant to them. Slowly, Taeho began to feel something he had not felt since this whole nightmare began. Not confidence. He was still terrified. Not strength. He was still just a small human engineer, but something else. Something that came from knowing he was not alone. When the hour ended, arena staff came to escort Taeho to the fighter preparation area. His friends would be allowed to watch from a special section reserved for bonded allies, close enough to the arena floor to provide support during the fight. "Remember," Do-Wan said as they separated, "you are not fighting as one person. You are fighting as part of something bigger." "We will be watching," Sujin added. "Use the signals we practiced. And do not try to be something you are not," Wu Bin said. "Be human. That is enough." As Tai Ho walked toward the arena, he could hear the crowd gathering above. Thousands of aliens, eager to see a human die for their entertainment. But he also knew that 3 humans would be watching too, and they would not be cheering for his death. For the first time since this began, that felt like it might make all the difference. The roar of the crowd hit Tae-ho like a physical force as he walked through the gate into the arena. 15,000 aliens filled the stands, all of them making noise. Some were cheering, some were laughing, and some were making sounds that probably meant the same thing in their own languages. The noise was so loud it made his teeth hurt. The arena floor looked different from down here. The red stone was smooth and polished, stained with colors that Tae-ho tried not to think about too much. The ceiling was far above, with lights that seemed as bright as stars. Around the edges of the fighting area, he could see weapons racks and equipment that fighters could use during combat. Tae-ho wore simple armor that his friends had helped him choose. It was light and flexible, designed more for movement than protection. Against Vorthak's strength, heavy armor would just slow him down without actually keeping him safe. At least, that was what they hoped. He looked up at the stands and found the special section where his friends sat. Do-won waved at him, trying to look confident. Soo-jin was setting up some small device, probably to help coordinate the signals they had practiced. Woo-bin gave him a thumbs up and pointed to his own chest, then to Tae-ho, a reminder that they were all here together. The crowd noise changed as the opposite gate opened. Vorthak emerged, and even the aliens in the stands seemed impressed by his size. He was even bigger than Tae-ho remembered, 7 feet of muscle and scales, moving with a grace that should have been impossible for something so large. His weapon, that sword-club hybrid, looked like it weighed more than Tae-ho's entire body. Vorthak raised his arms to acknowledge the crowd's cheers, then turned to stare directly at Tae-ho. Those yellow eyes burned with amusement and contempt. He said something in his own language that made many aliens in the crowd laugh. "He says you look like a snack," translated the arena's announcer. "Small and easy to swallow." The crowd laughed harder. An official walked to the center of the arena. It was a tall, thin alien with too many joints in its arms and legs. When it spoke, its voice was amplified throughout the arena. "Citizens and warriors, today we witness single combat between Vorthak the Destroyer, champion of the Saurian Empire, and..." It paused to check its notes. "Kang Tae-ho of the human colonies. Combat will continue until one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Let the battle begin." The official retreated quickly to the edge of the arena. Suddenly, it was just Tae-ho and Vorthak, standing 30 feet apart on the red stone floor. Vorthak began to circle slowly, his weapon held casually in one hand. "I will make this quick, little human," he called out. "A fast death is a mercy." Tae-ho did not reply. He was trying to remember everything his friends had taught him. Move efficiently, use the environment, be where the enemy does not expect. And most importantly, do not try to fight like a traditional gladiator. Vorthak struck without warning. One moment he was walking slowly, the next he was charging forward with surprising speed. His weapon came down in an arc that would have split Tae-ho in half. But Tae-ho was not there anymore. Following Woo-bin's training, he had rolled to the side at the last second. The weapon hit the stone floor with a crack that echoed throughout the arena. The crowd made a sound of surprise. They had expected this to be over immediately. Vorthak turned and swung again, this time horizontally. Tae-ho ducked under the blade and scrambled away, putting distance between them. The big alien's eyes showed the first hint of annoyance. "Stop running, coward!" Vorthak shouted. "Face me properly!" But Tae-ho had no intention of facing him properly. Traditional gladiator combat was about strength and skill with weapons. Taeho had neither. What he did have was knowledge of the arena's layout from Sujin's scans and the ability to think quickly under pressure. He ran toward one of the weapon racks, not to grab a weapon, but to use it as an obstacle. Vorthak followed, swinging his massive blade. The weapon smashed through the rack, sending metal pieces flying, but Taeho was already moving to the next obstacle. In the stands, his friends watched tensely. Sujin activated her device, sending a signal that created a brief flicker in the arena's lighting. It was barely noticeable, but it came just as Vorthak was swinging again, causing him to hesitate for a split second. That split second was enough for Taeho to dive behind another piece of arena equipment, a large metal post that supported some kind of sensors. Vorthak's weapon hit the post with tremendous force, but the metal held. Clever, Vorthak admitted, breathing slightly harder now. But cleverness will not save you forever. He was right. Taeho could avoid the big alien's attacks, but he could not avoid them forever, and he had not managed to hurt Vorthak at all. Every weapon in the arena was too heavy for him to use effectively, and he was not strong enough to damage those scales with his bare hands. The crowd was getting restless. This was not the quick, brutal fight they had expected. Some were booing, demanding more action. Taeho looked up at his friends again. Dowan was making hand signals, pointing to different parts of the arena, reminding Taeho of weaknesses Sujin had found in the structure. Wubin was demonstrating breathing techniques, reminding him to stay calm and conserve energy, but it was Sujin who gave him the idea. She held up a small device and pointed to the ceiling. The arena's environmental controls. She had been analyzing them for hours, looking for ways to create advantages. Taeho understood. He started moving toward a specific section of the arena floor, leading Vorthak with him. The big alien followed eagerly, thinking his prey was finally getting tired. "Ready to stop running?" Vorthak asked, raising his weapon for what he thought would be the killing blow. "Not really," Taeho said, and dove to the side again. Vorthak's weapon came down with all his strength behind it, but instead of hitting soft human flesh, it struck exactly where Sujin had told Taeho it would be most effective, a specific spot on the arena floor that was a weak point in the structure. The impact cracked the stone. More importantly, it damaged systems beneath the floor that controlled the arena's gravity and lighting in that section. Suddenly, Vorthak was standing in a pocket of reduced gravity, not weightless, but noticeably lighter than he was used to. His next swing was too fast, too hard, throwing him off balance in the changed conditions. The crowd gasped. They had never seen anything like this before. Taeho took advantage of Vorthak's confusion to strike back, not with weapons, but with the environment itself. He kicked at a damaged piece of equipment, sending sharp metal fragments flying toward Vorthak's face. The big alien had to raise his arms to protect his eyes, leaving other parts of his body exposed. For the first time in the fight, Taeho managed to land a hit. He struck at a joint in Vorthak's armor where the scales were thinner. It was not a devastating blow, but it drew blood. The arena fell silent. Vorthak the Destroyer, undefeated champion, was bleeding. Vorthak looked down at the small cut on his arm, then up at Taeho. The amusement was gone from his yellow eyes. Now there was only anger. "Enough games," he snarled. What happened next was the most terrifying 30 seconds of Taeho's life. Vorthak abandoned all pretense of skill or technique and simply tried to crush his opponent through sheer violence. He swung his weapon in wild arcs, smashing everything in reach. Arena equipment exploded into fragments. The stone floor cracked and shattered under repeated impacts. Tae-ho ran for his life, dodging debris and staying barely ahead of the destruction. But he was getting tired, and there were fewer places to hide as Vorthak destroyed the arena around them. Then disaster struck. A piece of flying metal hit the communication device Soo-jin had given him, destroying it instantly. Suddenly, he could not hear his friends anymore. The signals, the coordination, the sense of support, all of it was gone. He was alone again, facing a creature that wanted to kill him with nowhere left to run. The crowd sensed it too. They rose to their feet, cheering for what they thought would be the end. Vorthak raised his weapon high, preparing for a final strike that would end this strange, frustrating fight. In the stands, Do-won, Soo-jin, and Woo-bin watched in horror, knowing they could no longer help their friend directly, but they were not ready to give up yet, not even close. Tae-ho stood in the center of the destroyed arena, breathing hard. Pieces of broken equipment lay scattered around him like the remains of a battle. Vorthak approached slowly, his massive weapon raised for the killing blow. The crowd was on its feet, screaming for blood. Without his communication device, Tae-ho felt truly alone for the first time since his friends had arrived. He could not hear their voices anymore, could not coordinate with them. It was just him and the alien who had never lost a fight. Vorthak smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. No more tricks, little human, no more running. Just you and me as it should be. He raised his weapon high, muscles bulging as he prepared to bring it down with enough force to crush a human completely. The crowd held its breath. Then something impossible happened. The arena's main viewing screen, used normally to show replays of combat highlights, suddenly flickered to life. But instead of fight footage, it showed words in glowing letters big enough for everyone to read. We believe. In you, Tae-ho! Vorthak hesitated, confused. He looked up at the screen, then back at Tae-ho. What is this? In the stands, Do-won was frantically working at a portable control device he had brought from his ship. Soo-jin, did you get into their computer systems? Working. On it! Soo-jin replied, her fingers flying over her equipment. I am trying to access their communication arrays. The screen changed again. Now it showed images, pictures from Tae-ho's childhood that Do-won had stored in his ship's computer. Tae-ho as a boy, laughing with his friends. The four of them working together to build a treehouse, playing games in the colony's common areas. Growing up together, supporting each other through everything life threw at them. The alien crowd murmured in confusion. They had never seen anything like this before. What did friendship have to do with combat? Vorthak snarled and swung his weapon anyway, but the distraction had thrown off his timing. Tae-ho rolled aside, the massive blade missing him by inches. Ignore. It! Vorthak shouted. This changes nothing. But he was wrong. Something was changing in the arena. Soo-jin managed to hack into the station's communication system. Suddenly, her voice echoed throughout the arena. You are not alone, Tae-ho. We are here. We have always been here. Woo-bin's voice joined hers. Remember when we were kids and those older boys tried to bully us? You stood up to them even though they were bigger. You can do this. Do-won's voice was next. Stop trying to fight like him. Fight like you. Fight like a human. The crowd was getting confused now. In all the history of Crimson Arena, nothing like this had ever happened. Fighters were supposed to battle alone, proving their individual strength. But these humans seemed to think strength came from something else entirely. Vorthak attacked. Again, but his swings were becoming wilder, more desperate. He was not used to distractions during combat. More importantly, he was not used to opponents who fought as part of something larger than themselves. Tae-ho began to move differently. Instead of just avoiding Vorthak's attacks, he started to flow around them, using techniques Wubin had taught him. Not trying to be stronger or faster than the alien, but trying to be smarter, more connected to his environment and his friends. Every time Vorthak struck, missing by inches, the crowd could hear voices encouraging Tae-ho. Not just his three friends now. Other humans in the station had heard what was happening and were adding their voices to the chorus. The few dozen humans working various jobs on Crimson Arena all began cheering for one of their own. "You can do this! We believe in you! Show them what humans are made of!" Vorthak was becoming genuinely angry now. "This is not how combat works," he roared. "You fight alone. You prove individual strength. This is cheating." "No," Tae-ho said, breathing hard but somehow finding his voice. "This is being human." For the first time in the fight, he stopped running away. Instead, he moved toward Vorthak, not to attack, but to speak. "You have fought 47 battles," Tae-ho said, dodging another swing. "Won 47 times. But you have always fought alone, haven't you?" Vorthak swung again, frustrated. "Of course, alone. That is what strength means." "Is it?" Tae-ho asked. He gestured toward the stands where his friends sat. "I used to think so too, but then I learned something different." The alien paused, confused, by this strange human who wanted to talk during combat. "When I was a child," Tae-ho continued, "I was small and weak, just like now. But I had friends who made me strong. Not physically strong. I am still small and weak, but strong in other ways." On the viewing screen, more images appeared, not just of Tae-ho and his three friends, but of humans throughout the galaxy. Families working together to build colonies, teams cooperating to repair damaged ships, communities supporting each other through disasters and hardships. "We do not fight alone," Tae-ho said. "We fight together. Even when we are apart, we carry each other with us." Vorthak shook his massive head. "Weakness, individual strength is all that matters." "Then why?" Tae-ho asked quietly. "Do you look so sad?" The question hit Vorthak like a physical blow. For just a moment, his aggressive posture faltered. In his yellow eyes, something flickered that might have been loneliness. "I am not sad," he said, but his voice was less certain now. "When did you last have someone cheer for you because they cared about you?" Tae-ho asked. "Not because you won, but just because you exist?" The arena had become strangely quiet. Even the alien crowd seemed to be listening now. "When did you last have friends to share a meal with? To talk about your fears with? To laugh with about stupid things that do not matter?" Vorthak's weapon lowered slightly. I do not need such things. I am a warrior. Everyone needs such things," Tae-ho said gently. "Even warriors. Especially warriors." In the stands, his friends watched in amazement. Somehow, impossibly, Tae-ho was winning. Not through strength or speed or combat skill, but through something uniquely human. "This is ridiculous!" Vorthak suddenly roared, raising his weapon again. "I will not lose to weakness!" He charged forward with desperate fury, swinging his blade in a final, devastating attack that would have cut Tae-ho in half. But Tae-ho did. Not dodge this time. Instead, he stepped forward, inside the range of the massive weapon, and did something no gladiator had ever done in the history of Crimson Arena. He hugged Vorthak. The big alien froze, completely confused. His weapon stopped inches from Tae-ho's back, No one had ever hugged him before. He did not know what to do. "You do not have to be alone," Tae-ho said quietly, his voice barely audible over the silent crowd. "No one has to be alone." For a long moment, they stood there, a small human embracing a giant alien warrior who had never known friendship or kindness or unconditional support. Then, slowly, Vorthak's weapon fell from his hands. It hit the arena floor with a crash that echoed throughout the silent station. "I yield," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The crowd erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages, trying to understand what had just happened. Some were angry that their traditional combat had been disrupted. Others seemed genuinely moved by what they had witnessed. But in the Bonded Allies section, 3 humans were cheering louder than anyone else in the arena. Tae-ho stepped back from Vorthak, who was staring at him with wonder and confusion. "I do not understand," the big alien said. "You defeated me without defeating me. How is this possible?" "Because winning is not always about being the strongest," Tae-ho explained. "Sometimes it is about being the most connected." Over the following days, something unprecedented happened on Crimson Arena. Aliens from dozens of species approached the humans, asking questions about friendship and cooperation. Many had never seen beings willingly support each other without expecting something in return. Vorthak himself became fascinated by human social structures. He spent hours talking with Tae-ho and his friends, learning about concepts that had no equivalent in Saurian culture: trust, loyalty, love that was not based on strength or usefulness. When it came time for the humans to leave, Vorthak asked, "To come with them. I want to learn more about this friendship," he said awkwardly. "If you will have me." Duwan clapped the giant alien on the shoulder. "Welcome to the team, big guy." As their ship pulled away from Crimson Arena, Tae-ho looked back at the station through the viewport. Word of what had happened was already spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species were beginning to ask questions about human social bonds, wondering if there might be strength in cooperation that they had never considered. "Do you think we changed anything?" Sujin asked. "Maybe," Tae-ho said. "Or maybe we just showed them something that was always there, waiting to be discovered." Wu Bin grinned. "Either way, I think the galaxy is going to be a more interesting place from now on." In the pilot's seat, Dowan set course for home while Vorthak sat beside him, fascinated by the way the human crew worked together to operate their ship. Everything they did involved cooperation, communication, and mutual support. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. And for the first time in his life, Vorthak the Destroyer was not alone.